Okay, please do not be alarmed. Okay, now let me just recap. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the Story Mountain elements, and I mentioned this earlier, which is the most important section of the Story Mountain. You can use the response icon to raise your hand if you wish to answer a question. Let's warm up with a simple one. Which is the most important part of the Story Mountain? And this is a trick question, right? It's a trick question, right? Okay, Isaac, since you raised your hand first, would you like to unmute and tell us the answer?
The golden triangle.
Okay, very good. The trick question is there is no one single most important part. It's actually a collection of parts called the golden triangle. Thank you, Isaac. Can you tell us what's in the golden triangle of the Story Mountain?
The rising action, climax, and falling action.
Very good. Thank you very much. And in the case of us writing about being helpful, right? Can you remember which of these three parts was more important in the theme being helpful? I mentioned this also when I was going through this with you. Can anyone remember? Was it the rising action? Was it the climax? Or was it the falling action that was the most important in the golden triangle out of these three? Anand, you raised your hand first. So would you like to try?
The falling action.
Very good. The solution or the falling action, right? Because helping your friend involves solving the problem, right? And that is in the falling action. So the theme lends itself to the falling action more than it does the rising action, because the story is not about a problem. The story is about being helpful. In other words, a solution. Okay. So what does this show us? It shows us that different stories have different points of importance in the Story Mountain. You have to look at the theme of the story to determine which is more important, right? So actually, all are important, okay? But out of all of them, the golden triangle is the more important section in the Story Mountain, okay? Now, in the introduction, we must always introduce our main character and, crucially, what your main character wants to achieve in this story. Okay, so in the example later, I will show you who my main character is, right? And then I will show you how to establish the goal as well as to create a connection. Okay, how do you create a connection between the reader and your character? What are some things you can do to make the reader fall in love or at least like your character? Anyone? Raise your hands if you think of an idea. Arthur, go ahead. You are the first to raise your hand.
Like introduce the character very thoroughly.
Okay, I like the word you used, thoroughly. The word thoroughly is a very powerful word. Can you explain to me what you mean by thoroughly? What goes into a thorough character introduction?
Like what you think they may want to know about the character.
Like what? Can you give me some examples of what you think your readers might want to know about your characters? And the rest of you, I want you to be thinking and I want you to be focused as well, okay? I'm glad to see that you're all like focused and you're all appearing in the screen. But Arthur, go ahead, tell us, what do you think the reader would want to know about your character that will make the reader more connected to your character?
Their point of view.
Okay, very good. Their thoughts, their feelings, their points of view. Okay, very good. That will create an instant connection, especially if your readers have the same thought of point of view, right? Good. What else might help you to connect with the reader besides their point of view or their thoughts? What else might you introduce in the introduction that will make an instant connection with your main character and the reader? Anybody else? Okay, Anand, go ahead. You're the first to raise your hand.
Like something like the good thing about the character.
Oh, okay. So you review your character's good traits, you review your character's values, you review your character's virtues, okay? Virtues are good things about the character, right? Things
Yeah.
that can be admired, things that can be looked on favorably. Good. So you give something to the reader to like, right? In this case, a strong character, virtue, or value. Okay, very good. Well done. So these are some ways you can generate interest and create empathy. Okay, the word empathy means you feel for the character, right? Can you name me some of your favorite characters in storybooks that you might read? And maybe one or two things you like about that character. Kayla, go ahead. You're the first to raise your hand.
Teddy Fitzroy.
Okay, and what do you like about Fitzroy?
He solves mystery no matter how hard it is.
So he's very intelligent. He can solve mysteries no matter how hard these mysteries may be. So you value the intelligence and the crime-solving, problem-solving capabilities of Fitzroy. Okay, good. That's wonderful. Helen, what about you?
Zimi. He
Okay.
has a lot of humor and it's like very funny.
Okay, so you like characters that make you laugh, right? That have great humor, that
Yeah.
generate like, a smile on your face whenever you read them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can look at creating a character of that kind of characteristic as well, can't you? Right? If you like it, I'm sure other people will like it too. Okay. What about you, Arthur?
Geronimo Stilton.
Okay. What about Stilton? Do you like?
He likes to help others and he
Mhm.
doesn't really think highly of himself.
Okay, very humble and very helpful, right? Okay. So again, these are two virtues and qualities that instantly make us connect and like the character. Okay, so always remember, when you're writing a story, right, and you're writing a protagonist or the main character, always make your main character likable. Okay, how? Very easy. You just either show something that's good about the character, like our friends have just mentioned, or you make the character very funny, right? Like Helen mentioned, right? Someone that you can laugh at, someone that you can find very fun and funny. Okay, so those are some ways you can generate an instant empathy or connection with the character. And that's very important because if you get the reader in the introduction, the reader will follow you through to the conclusion. But if you lose the reader in the introduction, will the reader follow you through? No lah, right? The reader will just go somewhere else, read another story, or put your book down, right? It's very important to capture the attention of your readers in the introduction. So something that draws you in, like a good character, is a very good way to do that, okay? So next, after the character, is the setting. Now in the introduction, right, where you set the story, is it important? Is the where of your story important? Okay, I see Aiden nodding his head. Aiden, do you think you can give me a reason why the location of a story is important to the rest of the story? Why, Aiden?
So like they like have more a better understanding of the story when they know like the setting and problems. But then the setting can also like have like different atmospheres which links to moods sometimes.
Okay, right. I love a lot of what you said. Okay, you actually said quite a lot. Let me unpack it for everybody. So Aiden mentioned the fact that it is important to have a setting because it helps us to understand the story better, right? Where the story happens is important because it helps us to set the story in its context. Very good. Second of all, he talked about mood and atmosphere. Do you all know what Aiden means by mood and atmosphere? If you do, can you give me a nod, please, so that I kind of know? If not, I'll explain it, okay? Okay, who is not sure about what Aiden means by mood or atmosphere? Who is not sure? Can you wave your hands? Okay, who is not sure? Okay, all right. I see some hands wave. Kai En, I see Yu Xuan, I see Helen waving. Okay, I see. Okay, some of you are waving their hands. Okay, can I get back to maybe to Aiden? Aiden, can you give us what you kind of like mean when you say mood and atmosphere?
Like for example, like sometimes if it's rainy or like cloudy, the character can feel like sad.
Okay, I love that. So you're linking the weather to the mood of the character. Is that what you're doing? Okay, so like typically sunny days would make you feel more cheerful. Is that what you're saying, Aiden? And then like cloudy or gloomy days would make you feel kind of sad.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you all see that the weather can be engineered to set a mood or an atmosphere? Right? If you're writing a sad story, you could use the weather to kind of like make everybody's mood a bit more down, right? And if you're writing a happy story, you can use the weather again to lift everybody's mood and make them a little bit more cheerful. So Aiden is absolutely right. Now, the way that you build your story, right, depends a lot on the location and the weather and the appearance of what is around you. Because that way, right, it can kind of like be the backdrop, right? Can you imagine if the movie, the backdrop is just a blank screen? It'll be very boring, right? Just a blank screen with two characters there. Very boring, right? What you want is like a beautiful backdrop, right? Maybe it's like in a city, or maybe it's in a market, or maybe it's in a classroom. There's always something behind the characters, okay? And that's the setting. Very important to use a few sentences in your introduction to paint the picture of the mood, the atmosphere, and the location of your characters, even as you introduce your characters. Okay, so very important. That is something that can really help us to set a good story. Okay, so next we talk about rising action. Okay, now what happens at the rising action? What does Mr. Pang always say happens at the rising action? What must always be introduced at the rising action? Anyone? Okay, can I have someone else besides the ones who have already answered? Arthur, Isaac, Kayla, and Helen have already answered. Okay, so maybe I'll ask Dylan. Dylan, what about you?
Where the problem starts.
Okay, the problem starts. Okay, Stephanie, can you tell me what the word conflict means on my slide? What does the word conflict mean?
Like the problem.
Right, it's a problem between what?
Two people.
Two people, right? Very good. So a conflict, right, is a problem that arises between two people. Can you have a conflict when you only have yourself? Think, don't say yes or no. Think, can you have a conflict with yourself? How many of you say yes? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, Gao Mengxuan, you say yes, right? Mengxuan, can you tell me what is an example of a conflict with yourself? Give me an example of a conflict with yourself.
Like you want to do something, but then like your heart, like a part of your body want to do, but then a part of your body don't want to do.
Okay, so your own body or your own heart is fighting against itself. Okay, there's a part of you that wants to do it, and then yet there's another part that tells you no, you shouldn't do it, right? Kind of like the angel and the devil, the good and the evil, the right and the wrong inside of you colliding. Am I right? Have you experienced that before? Right? That's also called a temptation, right? A temptation, right? You're tempted to do something, but at the same time, there's a part of you that tells you it's not the right thing to do. Okay, so yes, there can be conflict in one person, but most of the time, conflict will happen between two people, right? They have a difference of opinion, or they both want the same thing, and neither is willing to let go, right? So that's kind of a conflict, okay? And that's what happens in the rising action. In the second paragraph, usually something happens within the character or outside of the character with another character. Can you all remember what are the two words I use to differentiate these two kinds of conflict? Can you all remember I covered this in term 1, no? What kind of conflict and what kind of conflict? The inside one and then the outside one. What is the correct term for it? Savesh? Savesh, unmute yourself, otherwise we cannot hear you. No volume, Savesh. Can you all hear Savesh? Cannot, right? Yeah, no volume. Okay. All right, now my Savesh, you try to solve your microphone problem, okay? Yeah, we still can't hear you. Renelle, what about you?
Internal and external conflict.
Okay, very good. Exactly that, internal and external conflict. Kai En, can you tell me internal and external conflict? Can I use them both at the same time?
No.
No, cannot use internal and external conflict at the same time.
I think can.
Can. Yes or no? How many of you agree that you can use it at the same time? Okay, yes. Oh dear, I don't know what happened to my screen. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah. So when you use conflict, you can be internally conflicted, and then you can also have a conflict with someone else at the same time, right? I give you an example, okay? For example, right, let's say shoplifting, right? You're tempted to steal something, right? Correct? So you have an internal conflict. You want to steal it, but at the same time, you know you shouldn't steal it. Then if you give in to temptation and you steal it, right? Then you have a conflict with the shop owner, right? The shop owner comes and chases after you and then apprehends you. There's a conflict between you and the shop owner. That's an external conflict. Have you just had both kinds of conflict? Yes, right? So you can actually use both internal and external conflict, okay? Now, the rising action moves into the climax. What happens in the climax, everybody? Again, you all should know this, right? What happens in the climax? Yes, okay. Let's have Reagan. Reagan, what happens in the climax? Reagan? Are you there? Reagan, I'm not hearing anything from you, so you probably need to fix your microphone or something. Okay, can I have Martin? Unmute yourself, please, Martin.
The problem gets worse and worse and worse.
Okay, so the problem gets worse, or in this case, right, the stakes get higher, right? Over here, can you see the stakes get higher? The stakes get higher means that the problem gets even worse. Okay, so that's just another way of saying the stakes get higher or the problem gets worse. Okay, now can you all give me an example of a problem that gets worse? Stephanie?
Like, um, I don't know.
You can use any of the examples of any of the stories we've written recently. Okay.
Like maybe you lost a match and then the problem gets worse when somebody laughs at you.
Okay, you lost the match and then people laugh at you, right? So you get more emotionally damaged, right? By people laughing at you after you've lost the match. So it's like insult on top of injury. Good. Okay, that is an example. Let's hear a few more. What about you, Zinka? Can you give me an example of a problem that gets worse? Just to check that you understand.
I think there's some. I stole someone's wallet, and then the person came chasing at me.
Okay, so you stole someone's wallet, you were discovered, and the person comes after you, all right? Potentially, maybe even like getting you into even, greater trouble or injuring you in the process, okay? That could be something that goes even worse. Very good. Isaac, what about you? You have your hand raised as well.
When you have no money, and then the problem gets worse when you don't have enough money to buy food, and then you starve.
Okay, so not enough money leads to starvation, right? Or a sense of deprivation, or just depression or sadness because you can't afford food to eat. Okay, that is indeed something that gets worse. Okay, so all of this has to do with your emotion or your physical body, right? Hunger is a physical sensation. Feeling embarrassed, like because someone laughs at you, that's an emotional experience. So things can get worse either physically or emotionally, okay, or both, right? It can happen on both elements. So that's how you add content to your writing, okay? So you shouldn't say, oh, Mr. Pang, I don't know what to write. Because when you introduce conflict, you can introduce internal and external conflict. And when the problem or the conflict gets worse, you can introduce an emotional or a physical worsening of that conflict or that problem. Okay, later when we go through the model, when I let you read it, right, y'all will be able to see how I develop that internal, external, how I develop that emotional and physical worsening of the problem, okay? That way you will never run out of things to write, okay? Your compositions will always have room to develop and get even more interesting and better, okay? So in the climax, right, the tension, right, the conflict, the problem builds, it gets bigger, okay? And then it creates pressure, okay? Can you imagine if something is like expanding, right, but the space that it's in is the same space, what's going to happen after a certain point? If something keeps expanding and the space that it is in remains the same, what's going to happen after a certain amount of time? Anand, what's going to happen?
Going to like explode or something.
Explode, right? Yeah, that's right. That explosion, right, is basically the climax, right? So it's a good way to think of a climax. A climax is kind of when the problem builds to a point where it cannot build anymore because the space is limited. Bang, it explodes. And then after the explosion, things kind of settle down and get better. Okay, so I want you to think of a story like this. You're building towards a climax, which is an explosion. And then after the explosion, things must get better. You cannot keep on exploding, right? Yeah, then your story will never end, right? So after the explosion, everything flies apart, and then you must kind of bring everything together again to land the story, okay? So that's kind of what happens. It creates a kind of pressure, okay? So this is the most important part of the story. The climax is the point beyond the golden triangle that draws everything together, and everything just kind of, explodes into fireworks, okay? Kind of like, bang, fireworks exploding all over the place, okay? So the idea of fireworks and explosions happening makes your story exciting, right? then you want to read what? Otherwise, so boring. Everything just happens as per normal. Nobody want to read your story. Okay, so that ability to create the fireworks, how big your problem is and how big your problem becomes, will give you this idea of what a climax ought to be, an explosion. Okay, so a lot of times it has to do with the problem getting worse before it gets a little bit better. Okay, so that's the turning point. Okay, that's the explosion, that's the fireworks. That's how things start to get worse and then start to get better. Okay, so your character must take some action. Okay, now what is the biggest no? What is the biggest problem that you're face when you're writing? It's this. Okay, if you are the character, okay, if you are the character, what must you never do in order to have a lousy climax or a lousy golden triangle? What must you never do? Your character must never do this. What must your character never do? Anybody wants to guess? You must never let your character do this. Otherwise, your story is a failure, it's flat, and then there's no explosion, and everything is very boring. Okay, what must your character never do? Helen?
Like the climax kind of just like matches with the rising action. Like it doesn't get any worse or any better.
Okay. So you're
same
saying that the
thing.
problem doesn't get worse. Okay. So it just
Yeah,
stays
it's
at the same
boring.
level. Okay. So it's very boring. Yes. Okay. That's true. If your climax doesn't raise it even worse, then yeah, your story may not be as interesting. But that's not the main problem. Okay. There is a problem that's even worse than that. But Helen is not wrong. Okay. Helen's not wrong. But what's even worse than that? Right. Isaac, what do you think?
The problem being solved too early.
Okay, very good. That's also a possibility. Your rising action, the problem just happened, then the problem solved already, right? There isn't even a chance for the problem to get worse before it gets better. Yes, but same as Helen, your point is correct, but not the worst that can happen. What must your character never do in order to make the whole thing fall flat? Okay, Helen?
Like they don't fix the problem.
In other words, they don't do anything, right? Now, the worst thing you can do in any story is to make your character the bystander. Do you understand what I'm saying? The worst thing you can do in your story is to make your main character become the bystander. Do you know what I mean or not? When I say you make your main character become the bystander. Do you know what I mean or not? Who doesn't know what I mean? Please wave your hands wildly so that I know that you don't know what I mean. Okay, I think most of you seem to be quite calm. You all know what I mean. Okay, very good. Okay. Can you give me an example of that? Of making your main character become a bystander in the story, your main character. Okay. Anand?
It's like your character is like not involved in the problem.
Yeah, give me an example.
Of
You're right. The definition is correct, but I want an example so that everybody can anchor their understanding on it. Okay, examples are very powerful. Okay, wait, Anand, you think about it, okay? Stephanie?
You see someone get bullied and then you just walk away.
Okay, you walk away, or you see someone getting bullied and then you just tell the teacher. Then the teacher ends up being the one that solves the problem. Okay, are you a bystander? Yeah, correct. You are just kind of watching, or you're just, or you're just calling the person calling the ambulance. You are the main character. You cannot simply be the one to call the ambulance. You have to do something to make your existence in the story worthwhile. Otherwise, you're just some innocent bystander calling the police or telling the teacher. That's not what a main character does, right? Have you ever seen an Avengers movie, right? Where the Avenger just come onto the scene, then they look very heroic there, then they take out their phone, then they call, hello, police? Can you come and arrest the bad guys now, please? Then that's the end of the story. The police come and arrest the bad guys. Then the hero just stand down there watching. Okay, super boring, right? You wouldn't want that to happen, right? But many of you write stories like that. Okay, you write about how there's a drowning incident, someone's drowning in the pool, you saw the person drowning. Oh no, what do? Call the lifeguard. Okay, and then that's it, the end of the story already. Okay, the lifeguard does the rescuing, but you must add more things about what you can do. Maybe you ran to the side of the pool, you threw, a life buoy over to the person, so the float, the float, so the person can grab onto the float and remain floating while you summon the lifeguard. Or maybe you grab a pole and then you reach the pole out to the person, so the person can grab the pole and keep himself afloat. You have to do something, right? You cannot simply be the person standing there, lifeguard, go. Police, go. Fireman, go. Right? You're not playing an active role in that story if you do. So you must take decisive action as the character, is my point. Do you all understand? Okay, so your character must be active in the story for your story to be interesting, right? And your character must experience the problems and solve it themselves for your story to be interesting. Otherwise, someone else is solving the problem, then why am I reading about you? Right? The story should be about that someone else instead. Okay? Right. So falling action, this is something that we all know. It's tying up all the loose ends, right? For example, I give you an example, okay? One of you wrote this story, I won't tell you who, right? If this sounds familiar to you, pretend that you don't know who I'm talking about, okay? Right? So this person is a student. He's going to school to attend a talent. He's got a talent show. Okay, he's in the semi-finals of a Singing Got Talent. Okay, so he's on his way to school, and then suddenly, right, an accident happens in front of him, and then he helps the person, right? Because it's about helping someone, right? He helps the person, and then he does everything, and then at the end of the story, right, the story ends with him, going to school. What's missing? What's missing? Kayla?
The Singing Got Talent part.
Yeah, what happened to the Singing Got Talent? Did helping the person make him late? Did he not, join the Singing Got Talent? Did he fail to get a position in the finals because he sacrificed his time to help someone? That connection was gone. There was no tying up of loose ends. That idea about Singing Got Talent got lost. The person forgot about it. Is that clear, everybody? You cannot forget what you wrote in the first few part of your story. Everything you start, you must end. If there's something about Singing Got Talent, at the end, there must be something about Singing Got Talent. If there's something about you are starting to cook something, at the end, you must have the dish that you cooked, right? If you have something about starting to start a project or to do something with your group, at the end, your group must present something, right? Your story cannot have loose ends. Loose ends are parts of the story that are not connected at the end. And then you leave the audience wondering, what happened to the Singing Got Talent? I thought there was a Singing Got Talent in the beginning. How come at the end of the story, there's nothing? Don't do that, because that is disruptive. It makes the story less effective in the eyes of your reader. Is that clear, everybody? So far, so good? Ken, give me a thumbs up if you're okay. Okay, we are sailing into a very quick end with the model already, okay? I hope this is helpful. Okay, so at the end, right, you must always have some kind of reflection to show you how the world of the story has changed because of what your character has experienced. Maybe your character becomes wiser. Maybe your character becomes stronger. Maybe your character becomes more talented. Or maybe your character becomes more aware, more careful, so they don't make the same mistake again. Something has changed, right? And that change must be in the last paragraph. You must let the reader know how this story changed your character. Whether it is through a value, right? You learn the value of care, or it is through a moral, right? You learned that, fire is a great servant but a bad master, right? Or you learn that friendship, a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? There must be something that your character learns that changes his or her life or world so that it becomes better, okay? Or worse lah, right? It could be a sad lesson, right? That a tragedy that, causes your character to lose something, but that too is a lesson, okay? Everybody clear so far? The end must be a transformation or a change. There must be something different in the story, okay? And again, if you feel that Mr. Pang is speaking too fast, don't worry, you can always review this video later and you can review the areas. I will bring everything together in the story, okay? Okay, so resolve any character issues, answer any questions that you've asked, okay? And also give a clear ending or a clear resolution for any characters whose fate is unknown. If the person is injured, what happened? Did he go to the hospital? right? If the person is on the brink of death, did the person actually die, or did they get revived and rescued, right? Or if the person is trapped, did he find his way out at the end? Never leave any character in your story with fate that is unknown. Okay, always answer the question, what happened to the character? What happened to the story? What happened to every other less important character in your story? Okay? And finally, this is your conclusion. Okay? Nothing much here, right? So at the end, your character's objective would have been met, right? Your character would have gained some insights, and this happening of the story would have changed your character's world in some way or other. Okay, right? So again, life lessons, universal truths, morals, right? New, different perspectives, right? Someone mentioned earlier the perspective of the character, right? So the perspective of the character will change by the end of the story. Okay, something will have been learned. Okay, now language. Okay, now your language, boys and girls, is very basic. Do you all agree with me? Yes, okay, very basic, your language. How do you enhance the language that you are using in your writing? Well, let me just suggest these two very basic things. Incorporate more similes and metaphors. You all learn similes and metaphors in primary 3 and 4, right? Similes are as something else, right? Metaphors are like, right? Like. And I'll give you some examples of metaphors in the story that I'll let you read later. Okay, so you all can see how similes and metaphors can actually enhance the language, make it more colorful, and make it more engaging. So your readers will not be so bored. The other thing is to incorporate your 5 senses. You've learned this also in primary 3 and 4. Show, not tell is part of using your 5 senses, right? Okay, you use your 5 senses to recreate, right? You all know what's virtual reality, right? Okay, you all know you put on a headset. That headset will give you this like immersion in a world that's like constructed, right? And then you have earphones that you can hear what's going on in the world. You have, goggles that you can see what's going on. And in some advanced virtual reality, you even have gloves you can wear that allow you to feel the texture of the world that you are immersed in. Now, that's your job as a writer. You're supposed to create virtual reality by using words to express sight, sound, taste, touch. Okay, these are the senses that you want people to feel and to experience when they read your story. Okay, so think about using 5 senses. Okay, now I'll come to a very quick close. This is the example story of helping your friend in need. I've constructed this introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion, plan. Okay, this is my plan, right? This is what's going on in my head, right? Before I write, this is what I'm going to think of. Okay, my character is going to be Nadia. She's going to be very shy. Why is she shy? Because if she's shy, right, then it's going to be very difficult for her to help someone, right? That's going to be her internal conflict. Okay, so I'm already thinking, the internal conflict is Nadia is going to have to overcome her own shyness in order to help a friend. And what is the friend? The friend is going to be a new student who's just joined the school and who is not able to catch up with her work. But Nadia is so shy that she has to overcome herself before she can help her friend. Okay, and what is going to make the problem worse? Once Nadia feels the shyness and the embarrassment, she's going to get rejected. That rejection is going to be the problem getting worse. So far, you're following me? Can y'all see how this story is going? So the rejection, right, will be the climax of the story, right? Why? Because I want to help, but the person doesn't want me to help. Okay, so that will be the turning point. But something I do will convince the person to allow me to help. And that will be the falling action. How that person is convinced by me or by my character Nadia to allow me to help her or allow Nadia to help her. And when that happens, that's going to solve the problem. And then the two of them are going to become best friends by the end of the story. Can y'all see how I'm developing the arc of the story? So the introduction, right? Who am I? I am Nadia, or Nadia is my main character. Rising action, problem, new student facing issues in school, but I'm too shy to help. Problem gets worse in the climax. When I try to overcome my shyness to help, I get rejected and I feel embarrassed and shy all over again. But then something in what I say or my face or my actions touches the heart of this person. Falling action. The person finally accepts my help and I manage to help, or Nadia manages to help this person. And then at the end, friendship forms and a shy student becomes best friends with a new student. and the two of them live happily ever after. Got it, everybody? This is the arc of the story. Yeah, it's complete, and then it fulfills the theme of helping a friend in need. Okay, so a new friend is also a friend in need. Okay, now let me show you the story. Yeah. Okay, this is the picture lah. Okay, let's say this is the generated picture that you've chosen. Okay, to write about. Okay, so this is a picture of two students talking to each other. I leave you to decide who is Nadia and who is Elena. Elena is the other student, the new student who has just joined the school. Okay, so please take a read. Okay, I will make it a little bit bigger so you all can see. Is this okay? Can you all see? Anna, you all just read, okay? Now notice what are the elements in each of the 5 sections of the story mountain, and do a mental checklist in your head. For introduction, have I introduced the character? Right? Do I give you some information about the character that makes you connect with the character, empathize or sympathize with the character? Okay. And do I also introduce the setting, right? Where this story is taking place, right? Do I give you some sight and sound, right? That helps you to immerse yourself in the story. Okay. So these are some things that I introduce in my introduction. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier. Later, when you review this video, you can also connect what is in my video with these parts of the introduction, which I will send to you as well. Okay. Then for the rising action, okay, I'm introducing the problem. And the problem, as you can see here, is an internal conflict, right? It's not external, right? There's no outside force that's against Nadia. It's all inside her. She's feeling very shy. She's not feeling confident at all. She's always been very quiet. Okay. And then can you see how I show, I don't tell? I don't tell you that she's nervous, right? I show you her palms are wet. Her stomach is twisted, right? And then there is that feeling of uncertainty gnawing inside her like a little mouse gnawing at her heart, right? This is all metaphor and simile, okay? Y'all can see that now. And then what helps her to overcome that feeling is empathy, right? Something helps her to overcome that struggle inside of her between her shyness and her desire to help. And that's her empathy. Empathy means she knows what Elena is feeling. So she is able to overcome her own shyness, and then she tries to engage Elena. But you notice over here, Elena is very reluctant, right? She's not very open. Okay, this is my challenge. My problem gets worse. Okay, and then very awkward, right? They sit down there quietly. They look at each other, very, very awkward, very, 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 very embarrassing, right? So Nadia is feeling it. Okay, and then you can see. All right, and then here, Elena rejects her. Okay, she does not wish to talk. Okay, now over here, right, you can actually do dialogue, right? But I purposely didn't do dialogue. Okay, why didn't I do dialogue here? You know, why didn't I just go, Elena said, go away. And then Nadia said, but I really want to help, that kind of thing. Why do you think I did not use dialogue here? Kayla, why not?
To show, not tell.
To show, not tell. Stephanie?
Because they are shy.
Okay, very good. I think that's the main point. The shyness is why I don't want them to talk so much, right? Both of them are shy. Both of them are awkward, and there's a silence, right? So I don't want the dialogue, because the dialogue, right, will kind of contradict the point that Nadia is very shy. So Nadia is so shy that she hardly wants to talk, but she's trying her best, okay? So I reduce the dialogue to show the shyness, okay, of the character. So that's also intentional. If I don't want to show the shyness, I can use dialogue here. That's perfectly fine, okay? Right, and then you see here, her confidence is slipping away, is draining. She's very embarrassed. And then there's a voice in her mind, again, internal conflict, right? Asking her to leave, but yet she understands what Elena is feeling. So that helps her to overcome that, and she remains. And then because she stays and she doesn't walk away, right? Okay, she tells Elena exactly how she herself experienced the same struggle. Okay, and then this helped to overcome Elena's reluctance and Elena's unwillingness, and she became more open here, right? Okay, can y'all see the development of the story? It's quite easy to follow, right? Okay. Now, I ask you to tell me, how would you score this story? For content, out of 18, right? How would you score it? And for language, right? Out of 18, how would you score it? Okay, I tell you first, this is not full marks. This is definitely not full marks. How would you score this composition? If this were a composition given to you and you were asked to award a mark for content out of 18 and a mark for language out of 18, what would you give for content and language? Stephanie?
Content 16, language 17.
16, language 17. Okay. Can you tell me why you gave more for language than for content? I'll give the rest of you a chance to answer. Don't worry. Okay. Yeah.
Because like the content, because the language she used a lot of like good phrases.
So you felt that the language was better than the content? Okay, right. Thank you. That's an opinion. Okay, Helen, what about you?
For content, 16.
Okay.
For language, 17.
Oh, same as Stephanie, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Likewise, I guess you think that the language is slightly better than the content in terms
No,
of
it's because like the content it's a bit boring. It's a bit like straightforward.
okay.
But for like language, right?
Okay.
That is like very
very
like good. It's like they made the phrases seem very like nice. It's like very smooth transitioning.
So very smooth. The language is well expressed, but you felt that the content was a bit boring.
Yeah.
But it's not bad, right? It's just that it's not outstandingly good, right? That's why you didn't give it a 17 or an 18. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. So very similar to what Stephanie is saying. Okay, good. Savesh, what about you?
Yeah, the same. 16 for content and 17 for language.
Same reasons as the above?
Yeah, same reasons.
Okay, good. Does anyone have a different set of reasons or different set of scores? Yeah, I'm interested to hear if anyone has a different reason or different set of scores. Isaac, do you have a different reason or set of scores? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Content 17
Okay.
and language 18.
Okay, so you are more generous overall. Okay, but you're still giving more for the language than for the content.
Yes.
Because you feel the language is stronger than the content is developed. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. I kind of agree with that sentiment. Good. Have I heard from Arthur yet? Yeah, Arthur, go ahead.
16 for content and 16 for language.
Okay, so you gave it even keel. Okay, why? Why was that the case?
The language is good, like, but then the use of vocabulary and words make it look like it's AI generated.
Okay, what makes you say that's AI generated?
Because there's not much like, dialogue. As in like there's like no dialogue at all.
So you would say that in a human generated story there will be more dialogue? Is that what you're saying? That is what makes it more human? Is it? Am I correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. All right. So it will be very interesting for us to explore what makes AI generated text, and what makes human text. But Arthur seems to be suggesting that this is not as human because it's got less conversation. But do you catch what I said about that earlier? Do you all remember what I said about that earlier? So do you think this is AI generated? Yeah, so I'll be very honest with you. I specifically wrote this because I didn't want dialogue to be generated. If I generated this with AI, actually more dialogue would have been generated. A lot more dialogue would have been generated because dialogue is part of AI generation. Okay, but because I didn't want to generate a story with dialogue, I wanted the characters to be shy, reserved, and not speaking very much, right? I purposely wrote everything in reported speech so that it wouldn't be so dialogue heavy, right? So yes, to answer your point, not really, But okay, 16, 16, I think that's a fair grade as well. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, Martin, last one. Then we'll wrap up here.
I think around 17 out of 17.
No, it's out of 18, not 17.
17 for content, 17 for language.
Okay, thank you. Right. So I'm kind of in agreement with most of you, right? Between 16 and 17 would be good because there are hardly any errors, right? Did you all manage to spot any errors in the language? No lah, okay? So the first thing about language, you must remember is not that you're using great vocabulary. That's second. The first thing, what do teachers look out for? Mistakes. So if you can write simply, but you make very few mistakes, right? You're already standing in a strong position, right? You are already looking at a 14, 15 at least if you make no errors. Then if you add in phrases like similes, metaphors, expressions, common sayings, quotes, all of this, right? Then you elevate that to a 15, 16, or 17. So I think this composition is within that realm because it's very clear of errors and there are some good phrases here and there. Don't need to be every sentence got good phrase. That's not important. Mr. Pang has marked PSLE for many years and it's always like that. Sometimes the simplest compositions get full marks. They don't look like there's a lot of difficult phrases, a lot of good vocabulary, but they are perfect in a sense that grammatically there's no mistake, zero mistakes. So in Chinese, there is a saying, 先立于不败之地. So you put yourself in a position where you cannot lose first. What is the position where you cannot lose? That is you don't make a single mistake. That's your first level. Don't make any mistakes in grammar, spelling, punctuation, or vocabulary. Then from there, you build up by adding good phrases here and there. 1 or 2 will do. 3 or 4 is good enough. And then you are very strong. Your language will be above 15, guaranteed. No mistakes. And then add on the vocabulary and the good phrases here and there. Don't need to be a lot. Too much also no good. That's the strategy for language. Is that clear, everybody? So I say again, first start with zero error. Don't be in a hurry to add in phrases you don't know how to use. Use basic phrases first. Don't make any errors. Then build on it by adding vocabulary after that. That's a distant second. Now for content, you are right. I will not give this the top band because even though this story does fulfill the requirement of being helpful, it's a bit boring, right? Not much happens, right? It's more of an internal conflict. How can I make this better? How can I make this more happening, more exciting, more interesting, and raise the bar of the content up to the highest? What can I include in this story that can make it even better? Very simple lah. Just look at the story. Tell me, what can I add? Kyan?
Plot twist.
Sorry?
Plot twist.
Plot twist. Okay, plot twist, like what? Can you give me an idea? What do you mean by a plot twist? What is twisted here?
Like suddenly there's another problem or something.
Oh, okay. So another problem turns up. Okay, for example, maybe the person that you're helping, right, turns out to be a delinquent or naughty student in disguise, right? And then, you unleash this naughty student on the rest of the school, okay? Because you help the student to do something and then it turns out to be something that's very troublesome. It could be a plot twist, possible, but what's a simpler way to do it? Okay, I talked about this already, right? Conflict got how many kinds? What kind of conflict is here? What kind of conflict is not here? What can you add to make this even better? Okay, yeah. Helen?
We feel like in the story they can add stronger emotions.
Okay, stronger
Make it
emotions.
less boring. Add some stronger emotions.
Okay, so the characters' reactions can be stronger. Okay, do you think it might be feasible to escalate their internal conflict into an external conflict?
Yeah. It'd be like less boring, like less thought in it and like more more physical things to it.
Yeah, more physical things, right? So when instead of just ignoring her, Elena maybe can push the bowl of noodles off the table and then it can splash onto the floor. Something dramatic can happen, right? Something physical can happen that can escalate the problem, right? Maybe when she does that, Nadia gets scolded by the hot soup, right? And then, the problem gets worse, not just in the emotional, but in the physical way. And then how you resolve that will also be more interesting, right? Because the more problem there is, the bigger the problem, the harder it is to solve. And the more you can write about and make more.
Yeah, like the more creative you can go.
Yes. So the bigger the problem, the more creativity can be harnessed in solving it. Got it, everybody? So that's one immediate suggestion now. If you think your problem is too small, expand it. If you think internal conflict is not enough, bring in external conflict or combine the two together to make it more interesting. Arthur, yep.
Add more sounds.
Okay, add more actions, I'm assuming you're saying.
No, as in like, because when I read this compo,
Mhm.
it feels like the compo, there's nothing happening in the background. It's just two of them.
Okay, so more ambient noise, more setting and surroundings, right? Like other people, how do they react to this? What do they say? What do they do, right? Yeah, possible, Arthur. We could add more complexity by including other characters, more background noise, right? I think, Arthur, that's what you're trying to say, right? More noise, more background noise. Okay, yeah, I think that kind of works as well. Okay, Anand, last comment for the day.
You can add external conflicts and the internal ones.
Yeah, that's what I already mentioned, right? You add external conflict to an internal conflict, you escalate it into something that may be a physical altercation, a physical fight, or a physical kind of disagreement. Okay?
You can
Right?
say here, you go say here and just stop and just scared.
Who is unmuted, my dear? Please make sure that you're muted at all times. Helen, I think that's you. Okay? Yeah. Okay, everybody. Any questions? All good? Okay, I've covered quite a lot of content, but I'll just summarize it. Story Mountain, every part has elements. If you follow these elements, you will never run out of things to write about. Language, think about similes and metaphors and use a bit more figurative language, more descriptive language in your writing. I will send the PowerPoint slides to all of you along with this model composition. And I will also encode this video, post it on YouTube, and send you all the link. In case you want to review it, you can play it back in 1.5 speed, whatever lah. So you can speed through it and you can review the parts that you feel you may need a bit more help in. Any questions at all, everybody? No? Then if you follow this formulaic approach, then your narrative will be quite safely within the realm of like between 13, 14, 15 upon 18 for each language and content component. Okay? But you'll have to be very mindful when you build your story that you follow this structure. Okay? Because the Story Mountain is there to guide you. And if you follow it, it's kind of like a formula. You can't go too far wrong. Okay? And of course, you must link the Story Mountain to the theme of the story, in this case being helpful, but the theme will be different for each composition. Okay, right? It's 1:01. I promised I will keep it to an hour. I'm a little bit overshot. Very sorry about that. I hope that's been helpful for you all. If you have any questions that you want to ask me personally, you can stay behind. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a good long weekend, right? And I hope you all enjoy yourselves. I'm not giving you any homework. There's no composition to write. But if you haven't finished the two compositions, please finish it and then check back to see the feedback I'm going to give you, okay, on your scores as well as on how you can improve. All right, that's all. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye, Judy.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, people.
Bye.
people.
Mr. Pang,
Yes, Aiden.
on Monday, is there school?
No, there's no school on Monday. It's an election day off for all schools and all.
Okay. Bye. Thank
back on
you.
Tuesday. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.